Since you've last been on the podcast, I've changed a few things about Bob. I now have a set start and finish question. I haven't told you about the finish question yet, have I?
No.
Okay.
Tell me about the start question, but I can't remember what it was.
I'm not going to tell you about the finish question till the end. We'll just do it as we come to it.
Wait for that.
So, my first question is about your call to adventure. So the way I describe it to people, Lord of the Rings, Frodo living in the Shire,
Yep.
Gandalf comes along, fucks his whole life up.
No. He makes it way better. He comes with fireworks and Bilbo's 110. It just gets better. And Lord of the Rings is about Sam, not Frodo. Let's just put that out there. But anyway, yeah, sorry, carry on.
Not Frodo. Gandalf doesn't go to Sam though, does he? He goes to Frodo, so...
Yeah, but that's just like an inheritance thing because of the ring. But Sam is the true hero.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Gandalf comes along, this ring, go throw this in the fucking volcano, mate. He's like, oh, that's the call to adventure moment where it's like, I can answer this call and change my whole life, or he could have turned it down and just been like, no, I'm happy in the Shire. So the people I have on this podcast are people that have answered the call to adventure. So my first question is, what was your call to adventure? But because you've been on before, I'm going to preface this with regarding your recent cycle.
Oh, okay, cool, right. So if we're doing call to adventure specifically for the stupid thing I just did, not all of the stupid things I've done in the past, listen to episode 1 if you'd like to hear about those stupid things. And then just a really quick bit, I now have a tattoo about episode 1 and it's 470234, and that will make no sense unless you listen to it. So there you go. So... The call to adventure was basically just losing my passport, essentially, which was really inconvenient. So I like to do whatever comes to my mind, and whatever happens or whatever I think of, I enjoy finding a way to make it happen, no matter how awkward or annoying it could possibly be. So this started because in December last year, 2023, I was watching the 49ers, thank you, and get it in, gotta get it in. And the game finished and I was probably a few beers deep. Not too many, but enough. And I was like, I'm going to book a holiday. So I booked a holiday to Poland for March this year, 2024, and didn't really think much more about it. Just booked the flights and booked like the cheapest hostel I could. The reason for Poland is because I like to use Google Flights and see what the cheapest flight is, and then just book it whenever it is. And then I just find a little window, or I try and book it early enough that nothing's in the calendar yet, and then I just say no to everyone. So that was the plan. However, March rolls around, all excited to go on holiday to Poland, no passport. Like, just it just doesn't exist, and it doesn't exist to the point where I feel like I never had one, because I have searched within an inch of my life to wherever the hell this passport should be, and I just cannot find it, no matter what. It just, like, it doesn't make physical sense. Like, I phoned my mum and made her search her house, and my mum couldn't find it, and if my mum can't find it, it doesn't exist. So where the passport is, I don't know. So I then got a new passport, as you would. And weirdly, just a really, really random side note, is the day I got a new passport, I found a picture of my old passport and it expired on the day I bought the new passport. So that was convenient, but also completely irrelevant to the story. So I'll move on. So I got a new passport. That came through. And then I was thinking, what should I do? Like, I've got a passport now. It's like freedom. I can go anywhere I want within reason. Like, Russia's off the cards. Maybe. I don't know. We'll put a pin in that. So I got the new passport. And then I went to see my friends, Claude and Lucy, and we were going for a walk, and we were talking about YouTube videos and things like that, and just because I was trying to make more YouTube videos, make more engaging videos, and make more like story type videos. And I was just like, what can I do? And I said, oh, I know what I should do. I should throw a dart at a map, and wherever it lands, I'll cycle there. And I was like, it's cool, but it's like, I don't know, it's a bit boring, I think. It just didn't super excite me. And then I was just like, hold on, why don't you book me a flight? And they were like, well, yeah, we could do that. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. I was like, if I get a credit card and give you my passport, you can just book me a flight, because you'll just have all my details. You can book me a flight anywhere in Europe. Just don't tell me where I'm going. Like, that's all I care about. And then we had to like figure out the times, because obviously anywhere in Europe can be very different, because they could have sent me to Paris, in which case I would have been back in 4 days, or they could have sent me to like Bucharest in Romania, in which I would have been back in like 24 days, I guess, because I mean there's a big difference. So that was quite exciting, but then I obviously had to find like a little window of time to do it. So fortunately found a window of time last month, which was really helpful. So then I sent them essentially this spreadsheet, which basically said, this is the day I have to be back. So depending on what day you send me, this is kind of how far you can send me. And in hindsight, I kind of regret that decision, because I don't know if I do. I don't know if I do. I don't know if it gave it away. I mean, I had no idea where I was going, which is a good thing, and I really did have no idea at all. I just, like, when they gave me an envelope at the airport as an hour before I was meant to get on the flight, and I was like, okay, cool. And then yeah, so I had this little window, so I was just given the credit card and then booked it, and then I had to actually figure out how the hell I was going to do this, because obviously my first thought was, I'll take a bike box, pack my bike in the box, fly, ride home. But then obviously if you take a bike box, you've got to either get rid of a bike box, which if you get a proper one is really expensive and a massive waste of a bike box, and also how the hell do you get rid of one, or I have to carry it home. And I was like, that's just not going to work. Like, there's no way that's going to work. So then was figured out that, okay, right, best way to do it is to put it in a cardboard box, because I can throw the cardboard box away, which was hilarious in itself, because I had to just go around multiple bits. I was just tearing it apart. And at one point, I was stood tearing this box apart, and then this massive bus full of people turns up and just parks directly in front of where I am, and just lets off like 50 people just straight into me. Like, literally, like, the door was exactly in front of me. I think he did it on purpose, and I'm just tearing this massive box apart, and just all these Italians just start walking off this bus and just walking into me and just looking at me like, what is this idiot doing? And then like one of them like tried to speak to me, and obviously I don't speak any Italian, which really doesn't help, so I was just like, ciao. I don't really know if this answers the call to adventure thing, but that is why I did it, is because I got a new passport and I wanted to do something stupid. And that's mainly it. I like the unknown. I think that was what was most exciting. It's just, I don't really have any control. It's like I'm being sent somewhere, and I'm being sent with my bike. It's one way, and I kind of don't really know how I'm going to get home. So all of that's just quite exciting. And then the other thing was about like filming it and things. The real fun thing with filming it is that I find out as well that day. It's like I film everything as it's going on, but nothing's set up, nothing, like everything that happens, I'm also like, oh shit, okay, like this is happening, okay, like let's deal with this situation. And so many things happened, and yeah, that was so exciting to me. But I think, yeah, it's just that kind of like unknown and chaos that was what really drew me to it. And it's just a stupid idea, and it I know I know I'm going to commit to an idea when I think of the idea and I can't stop thinking about it. So if I think of it and then basically I just keep messaging people about it and just talking about it and dreaming about it, and then every morning I wake up and the first thing I do is like, oh yeah, that idea, like how can I actually do this bit? Like that's when I'm like, yeah, I just have to do it no matter what. So just full commit.
Yeah. And it was full commitment. Following along that journey, I knew where you was going before you knew where you was going. I'd messaged Claude, and he was...
And
Lucy.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't message Lucy.
That's true. Yeah.
I don't know Lucy. I know Claude though.
Yeah, you've met Claude, but you've not. Because Lucy, when we did the filming day, Lucy was ill, so that didn't help.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Lucy was equally as lovely and slightly more evil.
So yeah, I messaged Claude, and he told me exactly where they'd booked for you, and I only knew the day before because I kept forgetting to message him. And then I was like, oh yeah, I really want to know where Bob's going. Like, definitely going to message him now. And I found out and I was like, oh, that's an interesting one.
So the fun thing for me was, and I will actually reveal where I went in a second. So the fun thing for me was that I was... because I knew we were filming it, I didn't want to look like an idiot in the video where they go like, you're going to da-da-da, and I'm like, I don't know where that is. So I kind of like thought of like all the places they could send me, and then in my head I had country and then I had capital city, and for some reason I didn't think ahead in the fact that if they sent me to a country, they could send me to other cities other than the capital. So immediately I was like, okay, so it's Germany, Berlin, France, Paris, it's Italy, it's Rome. So then when I got Pisa, I was like, I don't know where the hell that is. I was like, I just don't know. Because I was like, well, it's not Rome, so it's not Italy. So I immediately just ruled out everywhere in Italy. And I was like, I have no idea. And then my brain just went Leaning Tower. And I was like, oh, no, it is Italy. Yeah, right, I haven't thought this through. And then immediately my next thought was like, oh, fuck, I've got to get over the Alps. That was, immediate next thought. But that was quite cool. And then I knew I was going to be cycling through France. So I'd done bits of France before, but none of what I did. I've done all of the west coast of France, so none of the east coast. So that was east. Well, it's not the east coast, is it? Because there's no coast, but the east of France. So that was just insane. But yeah, like, what did you think when you found out it was Pisa?
Well, Claude, in the message announcing it was Pisa, said he's going to have fun going over the Alps. So that sort of summed it up, and I wouldn't have thought of that. I'm not that geographically well versed. So I was like, oh yeah, I know where Pisa is. And then as soon as he said Alps, I was like, oh yeah, there's like mountains and stuff in countries. I didn't consider that.
So I didn't know where Pisa is, as in I knew it was in Italy, and I was pretty certain it was northern Italy, but I thought it was northeast. It's not. It's northwest. But it's kind of one of those things you've heard of Pisa, but like, I mean, searching for it on a map, like I sat on the plane for a good 20 minutes just scouring the map of Italy and just could not find it. And the guy next to me was like, why is this guy so fascinated with Italy? I mean, obviously we were flying there. But at one point, I'm pretty sure the guy was probably like, does this person know where he's flying? I did actually talk to him at the end, which was funny. But and then just actually figuring out where it was. And I was like, okay, right, that is exactly where Pisa is. And I suppose, I think my geography is okay, but I suppose most people would be roughly like that. It's like...
Yeah, if you're from the UK, definitely.
Yeah.
We're pretty ignorant to the rest of the world.
Yeah, if you said to most people, like, where's Marseille in France, they're probably not going to know it's south. Yeah, cool, yeah. Yeah, so it's south of France. But... I mean, I only know that because I've been there, and I probably know France fairly well because I've cycled through it twice. But I think there's a lot of like random cities.
Yeah.
that, yeah, a lot of people just wouldn't pick up on. So that was my first moment of feeling like an idiot. And I think the funniest thing about that was when my face didn't immediately like recognize it, Lucy's face of just being like, oh my god, he literally doesn't know where he's going to die, was really funny. Of her just like, you just saw this like ultimate regret just come across her face, like, oh my god, I've killed my friend. So that was really good. But yeah, fortunately I didn't die, or unfortunately, because now they have to put up with me. But right, so interesting, right, so if you were in control, where would you have sent me?
I would have probably gone north.
Okay.
I'd have gone cold.
You would have gone cold, okay. I mean, the Alps are pretty bloody cold.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
When I think like Italy, my first thought isn't like, oh, he's going to be cold.
No.
If you think Norway, it's
Yeah,
like,
then yeah.
yeah, fuck, he's fucked.
Yeah, and I probably would have been. But okay, cool.
I would have probably gone Finland.
Right, so before looking at the challenge, there was one place that's really going to mess you up, which is Helsinki, which is Finland. So the reason is because so Finland borders Sweden and Russia. So it would be quicker to go, because I had this argument with my dad, because my dad was like, well, it doesn't matter where you go, you just go west. And I was like, no, but that's not technically true, because if you're in Portugal, you wouldn't go west. And I was like, so that logic doesn't stand. And I was like, but then also there's Helsinki. So if you're in Helsinki, I could have got a ferry to Tallinn in Estonia, then started cycling southwest. So that would have been an option. And I love how we're talking about things that didn't happen rather than what did, but this really fascinates me. So the other option is to go east into Russia and then into Poland. But I would need a visa to get into Poland, and obviously because I didn't know where I was going, I wouldn't be able to apply for a visa in advance, so that would have been an absolute nightmare. Or my other option is to go north into Sweden and then all the way down Sweden, which is a nightmare. Like that is, it's massive. I would have had to go on like 400 miles the wrong way to start off with. Like it's really rough. So if you ever really want to mess me up, send me to Helsinki, because that is a nightmare. But
I love how I was trying to think where would be hard for him, and I just happened to pick the worst place to go, and it's like amazing. I've done my job, and I didn't even know any of that. I was just like, Finland, why not?
Amazing, I love it. Well, I mean, I won't pick your brain too much on what you would do, because I may ask you to send me somewhere in the future, because I think that'll be fun. I'm just going to start around asking random people. But yeah, that'd be cool. Maybe we should do a vote on the podcast at the end. You could pick 3 places, and everyone who watches the podcast can vote on it.
There we go. You heard it here first, guys.
And yeah, wherever gets the most votes, I have to go to.
Let's do it.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
I'll put it as a poll.
Yeah, do it.
So
yeah.
I'm going to put a poll. I'm going to pick 3 random places with airports, obviously.
Preferably.
And one with the most votes. That's where you're going, Bob.
That's where I'm going. Okay, cool. So I won't look at the poll, so it's always hidden from me.
Yeah. It'll only be on Spotify as well, so if you're listening on YouTube, head over to the Spotify just for the poll. You don't have to listen to the podcast. Just
listen again.
Bob doing marketing for me.
Yes, I think that would be cool. Obviously, I don't have a window to do it in at the moment, but I can figure that out. Yeah, let's do it. And it'll be way cheaper this time because I've already bought all the camera gear.
Yeah. You spent a lot on camera gear and stuff specifically for this, and what I found funniest about it is we was like, we're going to do daily vlogs. I was going to edit them for you. You was going to send me all the clips, and after like 3 or 4 days of you being in Italy, I was getting worried, being like, none of the clips have come through. I'm waiting to edit. I don't want to message him because he's busy, but then I was like, I'm going to message him, and I messaged you being like, yeah, Bob, I'm not sure if you've realised, but none of the clips have sent, and you was like, oh no, I know they haven't sent, and I was like, oh thank fuck for that.
Yes. So essentially, it is so difficult to in a foreign country get decent enough internet connection, especially when you don't, like, I imagine if you have an address out there it's fine, but I was trying to use this portable Wi-Fi thing and essentially put the GoPro, if you plug the GoPros in and they're connected to Wi-Fi, they do like an automatic cloud backup, which would have been great. But the problem is I was being so tight on battery usage, and what I found is that when I plugged the GoPros in, they would overcharge because they would take so long to upload the footage that they would just keep drawing power from my power bank. So what would happen is the GoPro would get fully charged, which is great, which is what I needed, but then it would still have like 3 or 4 hours to upload, and it would keep drawing power from the power bank. So I just couldn't do it, because I was like, if I do this to all 4 cameras, immediately that I'm going to drain a power bank, and then suddenly I can't charge the cameras and I can't film. So it was a massive juggle between trying to keep all the cameras charged, plus my watch died, and I couldn't recharge the watch because it's Garmin and it's crap. It's very good, but it's crap at charging. I'll be very specific about this. It's very, very good at what it does as a product. I love the Garmin watch. However, charging the thing is the bane of my life. I have honestly spent like 40 minutes on the floor with it, like just fiddling with the lead and moving it. It's like putting a baby to sleep. Like, you have to like soothe it, and then you have to like get it in the right position, make sure all the lights are correct, and then you have to slowly back out the room, not make any noise at all, and close the door as quietly as possible. And then you have to sit downstairs with a monitor and watch it and make sure it's still on charge. Like, honestly, that's how it feels trying to charge the thing. It just drives me insane. So yeah, on day 2 it died. So that meant that I had to start tracking everything on my phone. So moved over to the phone, so that obviously killed the phone battery way quicker. Now the phone battery is nowhere near as good as the watch battery, so suddenly I was using more power on the power banks from the phone, because I was charging my phone twice a day. Because bear in mind, I was tracking on Strava for like 12 hours a day, so that's so much power on the phone, plus trying to do Instagram, like little bits for Instagram as well, and trying to take pictures. And also I had an Insta360 thing which doesn't take an SD card, it's only got internal memory, and I filled that up really quickly. So I was offloading footage from that onto the phone, trying to upload it to the Google Drive. The phone was running out of storage because there was too much footage on the phone, so I was just in this constant juggle. And if you can imagine, like cycling for like 12 hours a day to then set up a really uncomfortable tent in the middle of nowhere, like under a motorway bridge, for example, and then having to then go through all your footage and download it and fiddle with all these things, then fiddle with the watch and try and get that to charge, then make sure that your power banks have got enough, and just all these, it just like it got mentally too much to try and do the footage. So it just got to the point where I just went, nope, don't care, I'm just gonna leave all the footage. I bought massive SD cards for a reason, so I'm gonna forget the whole send all the footage, get it edited out while I'm out there, and just record everything, and I'll deal with all the editing when I get home. Yeah,
which that's the stage we're about to go through. Is the editing.
That's where we're at. Yeah.
So if you want to follow Bob's daily vlogs from cycling back from Italy, go hit subscribe on his YouTube.
Yes, please do. Yeah, follow along, because they're going to come out. We're going to do a vlog for every day, because a lot happened. Like stupid amounts happened. It was absolutely wild. But yeah, just capturing the whole thing, just like scenery and all the people I met and the challenge of it, all the weird random challenges I had with thunderstorms and getting lost and going the wrong way, and what else went wrong. The wheel that I nearly broke, the bags rubbing, the like getting like heat rash all over it. Like my legs are horrific. Just like the amount of like spots and like scabs fell off a few times. The chain just coming off every 30 seconds. Yeah, a lot happened.
The thing is, I didn't know the footage had uploaded now, so I haven't watched any of the footage.
Sure.
And I made a point when you were out there to try not to watch your stories because I wanted to watch it as I was editing it. So then I
brilliant.
knew what was like interesting and engaging,
Cool.
rather than having like an idea in my head and be like, oh, that's interesting to me. I wanted to save it.
Yeah.
So I actually have no idea what.
You don't even know what happened. Okay,
No.
good.
So this is all news to me as well.
Okay.
The one thing I did know about, and it just happened to be the one that like I commented on, like that happened to be the first one that I watched.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So the first one I watched was when you was like, oh, I've got a puncture. It's like 40 miles to the nearest town. I'm just gonna have to ride on a flat and fuck my rims up. And then
Don't fuck your rim up.
I tell this story to a lot of people. When I was free running in London, was at this free running event, loads of us just like jumping on walls and stuff. And one of my good friends, Bobby, just cycles along.
Yeah.
And we're just seeing him cycling along. We was like, oh, Bobby, yeah, you here for the event? He was like, oh, no, I've just got back. Like, what's the event? And we was like, what do you mean you just got back? And then I looked and I was like, there's grass hanging out of your tyre there, mate. Like, what's going on with that? And he was like, oh, I've just got back from Spain. And I was like, what? He was like, yeah, I've just cycled back from Spain and I run out of puncture repair kit, so I just stuffed the tyre with grass.
That's amazing.
And I was like, what? And I was mind blown. Like, hold on a minute. First, you've just cycled back from Spain. Secondly, you've done it filling your tyre with grass. And he was like, yeah, I filled it in France with grass. And he's just done the rest of the journey back. And that was the first thing that came to my head. And I just messaged you being like, fill your tyre with grass.
Yeah.
It works.
So weirdly, I had heard of that before. Not that exact story, but filling your tyre with grass. I've heard of that. I don't know why. But in the moment, it didn't occur to me. So essentially what happened is I went over a drain, and as I went over the drain tilted slightly, and my front wheel got over it fine, but obviously because it tilted, my back wheel then hit the tilted up drain. Thank you, brain. It hit the tilted drain and just immediately just popped. Like just straight, just not even the slightest like done. And I was like, great, okay. So I then pulled over in front of some poor woman's house, which I felt really bad about, but it was 32 degrees and it was the only shade. There was nothing. There was just like this one house and just on this like really straight road. And there was a couple of houses on the other side, but I couldn't have got shade from the houses on the other side, so I stopped in front of this house, and her dog went absolutely mental and hated me. And she was really nice about it. I mean, I think she was really nice about it. She was only speaking French, but she was very nice about it. And then I took the wheel off, and something had happened to my wheel, and I don't know what, but it was the hardest wheel I've ever taken off in my life. Just actually like unseating it from the rim was horrific. I've never seen anything like it. At one point I was just like, I'm just gonna have to like stab it and like slash it off. But in taking it off, I essentially ruined the tyre. But then I got my new inner tube out, my lovely spare inner tube, put it round, pumped it up, put the tyre back on. I was like, this is weird. The inner tube's not pumping up properly. Like, what's going on? And then my first panic was like, oh no, something's in the tyre, and I've just immediately stabbed the new inner tube and just ruined it. Like, what a stupid mistake. Because to be honest, I didn't really check the tyre, because usually you should go around, check the tyre, make sure there's nothing still poking through or anything. But because I hit a drain, I was like, well, there's not going to be a thorn in it, so I didn't think about that. But that's not what was wrong anyway. So then I fiddled around for ages, and then I was like, what is going on? So then finally I was like, oh, there's something wrong with the valve, because I can hear air coming out of the valve. So I was like, fiddled with the valve, got it all tight, like really like messed about with it, and just was like, I can't figure out what's wrong. And then I finally properly looked, and where the valve connected to the inner tube, where they had like wrapped the valve, they hadn't wrapped it properly, so there was like a very slight gap between where the valve attaches to the inner tube. So I was like, okay, well, I've got like a puncture repair kit, like the pads, but I don't really know like how I can get them round, because I couldn't, like, you need like the flat surface. It's like if it's randomly somewhere on the inner tube, you can like clean it, rub it down, put it over, get it like really flat so that it sticks well. But because it was right on the valve, I couldn't get the pad to stick. It was like if I like wrapped it round, it would like puff up in the middle and then all the air would still come out. So I think I put 12 patches on it, just like all like overlapping, and still just nothing. I just could not get it to patch. And I was just like, this is an absolute nightmare. What am I going to do? So then I was just like, well, I'm just going to ride on the flat. Like, I'm just going to leave it completely flat and just see what happens if I ride on it. So I rode a couple 100 meters, and I was just like, no, like this, I'm actually going to destroy it. I'm so slow, it's ridiculous. And then and then I put a couple of stories up on Instagram. That's when you messaged saying stuff it with grass, and then I was like, yes, that's a great idea, but also I've got some rope in my bag. What if I just, because I was like, stuffing the tyre with grass is going to take ages. It's going to take forever. Whereas like I've got like 10 meters of rope, and it's quite thin rope. I was like, I could wrap that round pretty quickly, get the tyre back on and get going. Little did I know it'd be really hard to get a tyre on over some rope. Like that was a mission. And whilst doing this, these three people, two women and this man, came and sat down on this bench next to me. So I'm doing this, just like there's this like kind of like little like lay-by car park, and then there's a little bit of green with a couple of trees and a bench, and I'm under these trees just like throwing everything, like everything is everywhere. My bike's over the floor, the wheels off, there's an inner tube on the floor, my bag is everywhere, there's stuff out of it, because obviously like all the stuff's at the bottom of my bag, and above it is all the camera gear that I need to get to quick. So all the camera gear's out, there's a drone, there's like 4 cameras, all this stuff is just absolutely everywhere. And they're just sat down just tucking into their lunch, like just like wrapping this thing. And then eventually this guy comes over to throw all this stuff in the bin, and I'm right next to the bin. I actually had one of the cameras on the bin, so I remember like quickly like taking the camera off to let him put it in the bin. Unfortunately, when I took the camera off, I knocked the button off. I didn't realise. So he helped me get the tyre on, and we were really struggling with this tyre. It was amazing, even to the point that once we got it on, the 2 women he were with like started cheering, which was absolutely amazing. So we did all that. Unfortunately, that was like one of the only bits I didn't film, just because I knocked the camera off. But then got going on that. And then went a few minutes down the road, and there was a supermarket, and I was just like, right, I need food and water, because I drained all my water just being annoyed at this whole situation. Gone through like 3 litres of water. I must have been there for 2.5 hours, maybe longer, because it was just a nightmare. And the problem was it was so hot, and just doing it in the heat was just like, it just sapped all my energy. So then I went to this supermarket, and it was the only supermarket like it that I'd come across. Every other supermarket in France so far had literally just been food. It's all that was in there was nothing. It was so specific. It was just like food. There was like a bakery section, there was a meat section, and then like your normal like supermarket, like water, drinks, chocolate, snacks, whatever you want. This one, I walk in, and I just noticed to the right there's like some like tools, and I was like, that's weird. I was like, why is there tools? I was like, there's like, I haven't seen that in any other supermarket at all. What's going on? So just in the I'm just like, what is the chances that they've got inner tubes? Like, it's so slim, but like, what is the chance? So I just walk down this aisle, walk right to the end of it, and the first thing I see is just this like massive rack of inner tubes. And I was just like, no, like this can't be happened. Like, this is the luckiest thing that's happened in this entire trip. And they had one inner tube that's the right size. It was the correct size, but the only issue with it is that it had a normal sized valve, where I've got slightly deep set wheels because they're like aero wheels, but they're not proper aero ones. They're not like really deep. I can't think what they are. They're PR2s, if anyone knows exactly what the deep set is on that. But so essentially, I have to get longer valves for these wheels, because otherwise the valve doesn't stick through far enough to pump it up. But they only had the regular valve, so I got that. I tried to pump it up, was having an absolute nightmare with it. Then I went back in the shop and tried to speak to them in French and get across the point that I was like, I have bought an inner tube, but the valve's not long enough. And I was like, I don't know what the French for valve was. I was trying to figure it out. I was trying to Google Translate, but couldn't really figure it out. And I was like, valve petit, valve grand. I was like, what is going on? And then this old lady who was really sweet was like, she could obviously speak a tiny bit of English. She was trying to be really helpful, and she sort of was getting it. But I think the problem was again, I was saying something like valve. And like, if you're French and you're trying to speak a bit of English, why would you learn the word valve? Like,
I don't know. Duolingo throws out some wild.
I'm sure it does, but I don't think she learnt it on Duolingo. I'm not sure that's when she learned, or the way she learned. I mean, I might be being a bit ageist there. She was amazing, but yeah, we sort of got it, and then basically we just walked over and we just figured out that no, they definitely don't have one with a longer valve, and I was not expecting it. But I was just like, this is nightmare. So then eventually I had to just really force it, and I can't remember how I did it. I just slightly got enough purchase with the pump, and I was just like, I think I've got it. So I just smashed it and just got it pumped up, and I was like, okay, perfect, this is like as good as it's gonna get. And then that was it. I got rolling. But at that point, like, the tyre was really like in a bad way. It had like a big bulge in it, so like every time when I was riding, it was like I could feel this, like, I don't know how to describe it. It was kind of like constantly going over humps. It was like this kind of up and down movement, and it was just really, really weird. And it was kind of like pulling to the left a bit, so it didn't feel that great. But it got me I think I got another 50 miles that day, which I was pretty happy with. But then immediately I did that, got on this open road, and I was like sort of checking roughly where I was going, and then I saw signs, and the signs were basically saying it was about, I think it said 18k to the next town, which is just over 10 miles. So I was like, okay, I can do that, like, let's smash that out. And then so I started going, and then about 4 miles into that, maybe less, I just got hit by this sudden, like, isolated thunderstorm just from nowhere. Like, it just came out of nowhere, and just suddenly there's like lightning just everywhere, just thunder absolutely pissing it down, like hail that was really hurting, like just super painful, massive drops of hail, and lightning everywhere. And I'm just like, well, I'm gonna get struck by lightning now, aren't I? And it's like, yeah, it's all great having like rubber wheels or rubber tires, not rubber wheels, that'd be really weird, but rubber tires. But I was like, but also, like, I've got a GoPro on the handlebars, I've got a camera on my chest with a magnet, like, I've got a drone in my bag. It's like, what are the chances that lightning strikes me? I was like, it's probably fairly high. I was like, I don't know. And then the tyre was being really annoying, so I remember stopping, and there's a bit I've got on video, and I stop and I kind of lean the bike up, and then there's this massive flash of lightning, and then I sort of like look up, and I'm like, I'm under a telegraph pole, I'm gonna move. And I just like start walking away. But I actually got really lucky again, because I looked at the map in my haste in the rain, and I thought I had to go right when I got to this next town, so I absolutely blasted it as fast as I could, got to this next town. I did the 10 miles, got to the next town. When I got there, the storm was mainly on my right, a little bit to my left, but mainly coming from the right, which would have been like north. And then, yeah, so if you imagine the way the road went, I sort of met like a 90-degree turn, so I was sort of heading northwest, and then when I got to this 90-degree, I could have either gone north or west. If I went north, I would have gone directly into the eye of the storm. If I went west, I would have kind of gone off to the edges of it. But in my haste to look at the map, I went, oh, I've got to go north. So I turned, went north, then the tyre played up. Then I quickly was like, right, I'm going to have to check this, see if I can pump the inner tube up. Jumped off the bike. That's when I put the bike against the telegraph pole. I was like, this is a bad decision. Did that, and then as I was starting going again, there was a flash of lightning literally like directly in the center of the road where I was going. It was quite far ahead, but it was like in the middle of the road. And I was just like, no, I'm going to just like sit this one out for a minute. I'm going to try and find a cafe. So I turned around, started going the other way, back into this little village, town, don't know which. I'd probably say village. It wasn't very big, but I went past like 2 cafes, both were closed, and I went over this little bridge, and I was like, okay, this bridge is like a stone wall, so I can turn around, I can put the bike up against the stone wall, that's less likely to be struck by lightning, and then I'll have a fiddle around with it. And as I did that, I went round, I started fiddling with the bike, and this woman came out from this shop behind me, which I thought was a flower shop to start off with, and invited me in. And she was like, oh, would you like to come in and like wait until the storm has passed? All of this was in French. She may have said more or less than that. She might not have invited me in, but I went. I'm pretty sure she invited me in. So then I ended up going in, and it was a funeral home. She was a funeral director, but she was so nice, and she made me coffee, and we just sat and had a chat. But she hardly spoke any English, and my French is pretty terrible. It used to be good, but I just haven't done any of it in so long, and I'm so bad with languages. I find it so hard. So my French was terrible. But then she ended up phoning her daughter, and she FaceTimed her daughter, who was learning English in school, and then we basically spoke through her daughter, and it was absolutely incredible. And then eventually the storm passed, and then I was explaining where I was going. She was like, oh yes, so you're going to go this way, and she pointed the other way to what I thought I had to go, and I was like, yes, I'm going that way. And then I was like, well, that was lucky, because if I hadn't have stopped and decided to like shelter from the storm, I would have gone deeper into the storm, probably pushed as hard as I possibly could to get out of it in the wrong direction. So like just pure luck, essentially, from being scared of being struck by lightning, which I think is a valid fear. Like,
out of all the fears I've come across, that is one of the more valid ones. Being struck by lightning in the middle of a lightning storm.
I think it's fairly valid, yeah. And that wasn't the closest I came to being struck by lightning.
Oh, well.
Which is the worst. Yeah.
What's this other story then?
So you obviously don't know. So this is great. So night 3. This is where I did make a mistake and go the wrong way. So I went to a place called Pinerolo, which is southwest of Turin. And essentially I picked this out because looking at the Alps on the map, they were slightly smaller there. It looked like there was a pass over the Alps that was like a few hundred meters smaller. So I was like, well, less climb is probably good. I kind of had 2 options. So I could have gone from Pisa, I could have gone like really direct and gone basically to Turin and then straight northwest over essentially into Switzerland and then down into France further north than what I did. But the problem with that is that essentially I would have kind of gone like roughly where Geneva is, but that area of the Alps is massive because that's where Mont Blanc is. So like if you like, Mont Blanc is basically on the border of France, Italy and Switzerland. So in France, the town, there's like Chamonix, and like I mainly know this because of Ultra Trail Mont Blanc, which is like one of the biggest ultra marathons in the world. But essentially Mont Blanc is massive. So I was like, okay, the likelihood of me getting over the Alps there, I mean, I could probably do it, but it's a lot of climb. So it's probably easier to go west, get over the Alps where it's a bit lower, lower? I don't know how to, lower. And then get into France, smash it north. So that was the plan. But little did I realise that when I got there, the top of this pass was a motorway tunnel. which I can't cycle on. So I basically could have cycled to the top of the mountain and then not got into France. So I could go to the top and then I could come back, but I couldn't go over it. There was like probably 12 mile. I don't know exactly how far because it was just on a map and I was roughly guessing, but it could have been anywhere between like sort of like probably like 2 and 12 miles. And I was like, okay, I don't know, but I definitely can't ride on it. I probably could have risked it and ridden through a massive motorway tunnel, but that feels like death. So then a few people messaged and they said, like, what if you hitchhiked that bit? And I would kind of put a message into Claude and Lucy, and I was like, right, I've messed up. Like, let's talk about the rules here. If I ride up there, can I hitchhike through the tunnel and ride down? And there's even a clip of me on camera, so I film myself sent the voice note, and then there's a clip immediately recorded afterwards of me saying, essentially, it doesn't matter what they say, I think it's cheating if I hitchhike, so I'm not going to do that. And then they came back and they were like, yeah, you can't do that, that's cheating. And I was like, okay, fair enough, let's go to the Northern Pass. Anyway, that's how I got to Pinerolo, which is where I camped that night. So the place where I camped, it wasn't a campsite, it was a camper van parking place with a field. And there was 2 camper vans there when I got there. And I just kind of hid around the corner, set up my tent, and just stopped there. I didn't use any facilities other than that there was a camper van water fill-up thing, and I used the water to wash. Not even a proper shower, and it was free. So yeah, set up the tent, didn't get any food that night, there was nothing open. I remember walking through the town. At this point I'd figured out I'd gone the wrong way, so I was like pretty pissed off, and then didn't get any food and was pretty hungry, so I was again doubly pissed off. So I was like, the good thing is that I'm stopping quite early tonight, so I can get my head down, get a really good night's sleep, and like this will be great. So get my head down, go to sleep, put everything on charge, got the power packs right, like the tent is tiny, it's literally an inch bigger than me both ways, both like height and width. It is literally a coffin. So put the power pack on, that's right next to my head. So there's a power pack next to my head, charging phone, 2 GoPros, an Insta360 and a drone. And I'm like, okay, cool, let's go to sleep. So then suddenly I'm awoken by the loudest crack of thunder I've ever heard in my life. Like, it scared the shit out of me. It was so loud. I can't describe how loud this thunder was. I was like, what? Like, it was like I was being run over by a tank. Like, honestly, it was so loud. And that obviously, so then woke up in like immediate like cold sweats. Like, what the fuck? So I opened the tent flap to see, because it wasn't raining, and I was like, what's going on? So I opened the tent flap. As I opened the tent flap, there's a flash of lightning, and I'm not exaggerating, it was 20 feet away. It hit the ground, and it was so close. It was in the same field. It was, it was like 3 car lengths away, essentially. So unbelievably close. Like, I could trace the entire thing of lightning all the way down to the exact point it hit. And I remember like seeing it, and then like looking, and like the flash was still like burnt into my vision. I could still see it, and I just immediately shit myself. I was just like, oh, like, I'm gonna die. Genuinely, that was my first thought. It was just like, I'm going to die. The tent has got metal poles, and I'm sat next to it. Like, I'm lying next to a power pack. Like, I'm lucky that like strike of lightning didn't hit me. So I was just like, what do I do? So I remembered seeing the camper vans. So I ran over to these camper vans and started banging on the door. And I'm like, they're going to be awake, because that thunder, like that must have woke them up too. So I didn't know what language they spoke. My mum made a very good point when I told her this story. She was like, why don't you just look at the number plate? I was like, yeah, well, I didn't think that. Sorry. So I didn't know what language they spoke. So the first thing I did was I spoke into my phone on Google Translate and said, please can I shelter in your camper van whilst the storm passes? Changed it into Italian, started playing it full loudspeaker. They could definitely hear it because I could hear them inside, and they were like shouting something to me. And I played it like 4 or 5 times, and I'm certain they could hear it. Then they turned this light on, this massive light, and I remember the same time they turned the light on, there was another massive crack of thunder. I don't know where the lightning was. I remember a flash, but I don't remember how close it was. I was like, okay, like this, like what's going on? So then I changed it to, because I was like, well, I'm not far from France. Let's change it to French. So I changed it to French, played it again, nothing. They sort of just like, they were like, kind of like, I think they were talking to I'm sure they were talking to each other, and it sounded quite frantic, and they sounded quite scared, which I understand. Like, I fully get, like, if someone knocks on your camper van door at 1 a.m. and you're in the middle of nowhere, you're probably not going to let them in, are you? like it's so hard, because it's like, I could have been struck by lightning, and I'm thinking, if the situation was the other way around and they're knocking on my camper van door, would I let them in? And I think I would, but then again, I'm me and I'm an idiot. Like, I do pick up hitchhikers all the time because I just think it's brilliant. So I probably would, but I'm not annoyed at them for not letting me in, because like, you do hear these stories of people like massacred in campsites in the Alps, and like, you like, I get it, so fine, like, leave me to die, I get it. So then I went back to the tent. I remember just getting in the tent and being like, if I just go to sleep, it'll all be fine. And then I remember there's like a thing of like counting. So when you see a flash of lightning, you count, and if you count to 30 before the thunder, you're okay. If it's less than 30, you should move. If it's less than 18, you should hide and find shelter as immediately as possible. I saw the flash of lightning and I counted to 2. And I was just like, I'm gonna die. So I was like, what do I do? So I ran and knocked on the camper van again. And there was 2 camper vans, so I knocked on the other camp. They were definitely together. They were like parked with like a central bit that they would obviously like set up like a communal light. So they're definitely together. Knocked on the other camper van, and then they started really like aggressively shouting at me. And I like in the panic of it, I don't remember what language they were speaking, but whatever language they were speaking, they were telling me to fuck off. So I kind of got the message at that point. And then very conveniently at that point, I remembered walking around a little bit before when I just pulled up at the campsite. It's not a campsite. It wasn't a campsite at all. But I remember there was like a sports centre, and I remember going over and having a look at it, because I thought there might have been like a cafeteria or something, and there was, but it was closed. It looked like permanently closed. But I remember there was a public toilet that was open, and I was just like, that's it, that's where I'm going. So I just ran back to the tent. I picked up my blow-up mattress, my pillow, and my sleeping bag, and I just ran. I just ran to this public toilet, and then I got in there, I locked the door, and I lied on the floor, and I went to sleep in there for 4 hours. And I just hid in there, and then I remember having like the worst broken sleep ever, being so uncomfortable on the floor, because I wanted as little to touch the floor as possible. Like, I'm going to be honest, it was grim in there. I'm pretty sure there was piss all over the floor. It was proper grim, and I slept in that sleeping bag for the following like 9 nights, which was probably covered in piss. So. Go to Europe, guys. So yeah, that was lovely. That was a real low moment. And then I went back to the tent, and then slept for like another 2 hours, I think. And then I set an alarm for 6 a.m. and I got up and I packed everything away and I left as quickly as I could and started cycling back where I'd come from for 30 miles to go the right way. So, yeah, like, I remember feeling really crap the night before and just being like, all I want is a good night's sleep, because I hadn't had a good night's sleep at all up until then, because the night before I went, we left for the airport at 3 a.m. and I went up to Claude and Lucy's because they helped me. They drove me to the airport because they're absolute legends. And we put the bike in their car. So then I think we didn't go to bed until like 11:30, then got up at 3, went to the airport. Okay, I didn't drive, which was nice, but I did stay awake. Then flew, didn't sleep, rode all that night, then slept under a motorway bridge, which was the worst, a really awful night's sleep. So got no sleep that night. Then the next night I met these Italians, which we'll get into in a second, and got very drunk and slept on the floor of a pizzeria, didn't sleep that night. And then the next night, that was when I was like, okay, I really want a good night's sleep. Then had all the lightning stuff, camper vans, public toilets, and got no sleep again, and then was just like, oh my god, this is awful. And then I had to go back the wrong way, so I was very unhappy at that point. I was just like, oh, what have I done?
Yeah. And yet you still want to go and do another one.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to do it again.
Oh, this is what I love about you, Bob. Like, not only do you have like the worst, best ideas ever, you then go and have a miserable time, and then you're like, that was amazing, I loved it, how can I make it worse?
It wasn't miserable. It was like,
so far it sounds pretty miserable, mate.
But it wasn't, because it was also amazing. It's like when else am I going to be 20 foot from lightning covered in piss?
Well, this is something I've read about recently. You've got like the type 1 fun, like parties, like you're going out, I call it organised fun, because it's like you're going somewhere to have fun.
Okay.
Like it's planned, it's pre-planned. Parties, best example. You're going out clubbing, whatever that is.
That's horrific.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. To be fair, I'm with you all the way, which is why I love you to bits. Type 2 fun is the type where at the time you're not enjoying it, but then afterwards you're like, wow, that was amazing. Not quite there yet.
Okay, right.
That's what I see a lot of the people that I get on with like. This, like, I think ultra marathon, I think like you do a 50 miler, you've spent like 10 hours on your feet, whatever it might be. You have good moments, but a lot of it is you're just pushing yourself, you're suffering. Yep. Right? That sounds like type 2 fun to me. Because you get back and you're like, I've achieved this thing, I feel amazing, that was actually awesome, I loved all of those very specific moments. And then recently I've heard about type 3 fun, where it's just not fun at all. And for some reason we enjoy it. And that's exactly what yours sounds like, type 3 fun, where it's like, this isn't fun in the slightest. Like overturning a boat in the sea, like, it's not fun. People probably shouldn't enjoy this, but they do.
No, it is fun. It is, because it's just living, isn't it? It's like, I just think, like, what is the point if I just do nothing? Like
I can't imagine you having type 1 fun, like, ever.
No. Like, my biggest fear is like a nightclub.
Have you ever been clubbing?
I have. I've been on my brother's stag do, which, I'm sorry, Mike, but I really did not enjoy. I have been on my cousin's stag do, which was actually, no, that's not true. My brother's stag do, we played football on the beach. That was good fun. Yeah, I think that's about it. I don't. It's not me. I can't do it. It's like the most anxiety-inducing thing in the world for me. Like, I just hate it. Like, it's weird because, right, so I play drums. which you'd know if you listen to episode 1. I don't know, I have like so much disdain for people who may have already watched episode 1. I'm sorry.
If you haven't listened to episode 1, definitely go listen to it, because I know it's a long one.
Yeah, you
It's
must
the
have time on your hands if you listen to episode 1.
It's the first epic on the podcast, which lasted over 2 hours. But it's a great episode. I think it's one of the underrated episodes of the podcast. Like, I messaged you afterwards, didn't I? Where I was like, since the podcast, like straight after, I was like, I've gone for a run today. Gone for a run, and I think I did like 17 miles or something.
Amazing.
And I'd run for like ages before that, and I'm like, I'm running again now. I'm gonna run. And then I was like, that run wasn't enough. Like, what would Bob do? And then I was like, to edit the podcast, I'm setting up my bike trainer.
I remember that.
My bike trainer here. I got my dip bars and a plank of wood so I could have the keyboard in front of me. And I was just sat there editing. It took me like 6 hours to edit your podcast.
Bloody hell.
Like 6 hours on the bike trainer. Let's go.
Amazing. I love that. Yeah.
But yeah, wicked episode. And like, you'll find out why Bob towed a drum kit 100 miles.
Well, yeah.
Which we're not going to go into in this, because I want to know more about Italy and France, because this is new to me. Like, what's this Italian family?
There's so more. Right, okay, yeah. So, right. Should we go to...
First, did you record the lightning stuff? I'm begging you've recorded some of that.
Oh, yeah, I filmed myself going into the toilet.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, I filmed all of it.
For this footage.
I think I was turning the camera on and off. I don't think I got a lightning strike on camera.
Did you get you knocking
Well,
at
I don't know.
caravans?
I think so, yeah.
I'm excited.
I can't remember if I got that or not. I may have or may not have. I definitely got going into the toilet. I don't think I got the camper vans because I think I just ran immediately with my phone. I think I was too focused on doing the Google Translate, which is annoying.
Such an inconvenience. Like, you're like, oh, I really don't want to get struck by lightning, but I bloody should have got my camera out first.
I should have. I remember seeing a video on YouTube, and someone said like, if you think you're gonna die, make sure the camera's recording, because you either die or have an amazing video. And then I remember thinking afterwards, I was like, bollocks. But I kind of stand by that. I think it was amazing. Like, there was one bit when I was on a contraflow system, and there was this lorry coming, and some of them were like amazing. Like, they were trying to pass really safely, like, and I was like on the edge of the grass, like really gonna fuck it. And then some of them were just like, nope, fuck you, like, I'm coming through, and it's like really rough, and I've got like all the cameras on. So the Italian family are amazing, and it's not just one family, there's like a load of families. So this is day 2. How deep do we go into this? Right, okay, so
save some for the video, but I want some info.
Okay, so day 2 I had to get out of I've been calling it Genova, which is how the Italians say it. Now, I'm going to come across really pretentious here, but I was reading a map and it said it in Italian, not in English, so that's why. We call it Genoa, or Genoa. I don't really know, but I know Italians call it Genova, but the English translation doesn't have a V in it. I don't know why I'm being so specific about this. I just know I said it so many times in the video, I don't want to come across like an idiot. But anyway, so I essentially went up the coast from Pisa to Genova, and then that's where I was going to try and get across the mountains. Now, I don't know what these mountains are. I have asked friends, and we've looked at the map and studied it, and we kind of not really sure. It might be a little bit of the Alps, but it's not very big, but it's basically just on the western coast, the northwest coast of Italy, which, the west coast. It's not the northwest coast, because the northwest border of Italy is the Alps, but if you think of the top of the west coast. So that's where I went over. So I was aiming for a place called Avada, but I got there way quicker than I thought. I don't really know how. I thought it was going to take me 4 hours, but it took me less than 2. And I don't know why. I think I must have just read the map slightly wrong and thought it was further than it was. But went over there, and essentially I saw a sign. I remember seeing a sign that said 7k to Avada, and I thought they'd left the 0 off. And then when I then got to the one that said 6k, I was like, well, there's no way I've done 10k, and they're not going to leave the signs off, the 0 off 2 signs. So I was like, oh, okay, like this is wicked. So I can push further. So I went to this place called Alessandria. So when I got to Alessandria, I thought I saw a sign that said camping. So I started to follow it. So I followed it like all the way across to the other side of the city. And then there was nothing. There was just nothing there. There was just like this like block of like houses and a couple of buildings and nothing. And I was just like, oh, great. But at that point, it was getting really late. So it was like, I think it was like 9:20 or something. Or maybe 9:22. But essentially, I was about to start losing light quite quickly. So I was like, right, I need to get some food. So I sort of pulled up to this pizza restaurant. And there's a load of people in there. And they're all like on one table. And they're all like having an amazing time, like really loud, just like enjoying themselves. And I'm sort of like, right, I'm absolutely stinking. It was like 34 degrees that day. I hadn't been out in the sun. I'd cycled 110 miles or whatever it was, and I was like, I absolutely stink. I'm not going to ruin these people's night by just coming in and like just stinking the place up. I'm going to slowly back away and go somewhere else. Now, as I'm trying to do this, the guy comes out and he's like, Joe, like starts like speaking, and I'm like, oh yeah, and I'm like, sorry, like English, he's like, oh, go. And so then I was like, could I get a pizza to go? And he's like, have a table. And obviously this is all done through gestures and stuff. And he's like, no, have a table, like sit down. I recommend this pizza and all this stuff. And I was like, only if you're sure. And he's like, yeah, definitely, 100%. Like, so I sat down. And then while he comes over, he's like, what pizza? I was like, I'll have the one you recommend. Like, if that's good, let's do that. And he's like, amazing, let's do it. So while he goes and gets that, I start getting the map out, which is this massive map of Europe. So it's basically, essentially to navigate, I had a map of Europe, which is like a road map of Europe, but it does the entirety of Europe. So you can imagine the scale of it. So it's got inch. The squares are an inch square, and each square was 61 miles. So you can that's how detailed the map is. So there's nothing like cities was a nightmare. So I'll explain how I navigated cities in a minute. But so I've got this map out and I'm looking at all of it, and he comes over and he's like, oh, are you cycling? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I cycle. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And he started talking about how he cycles. He likes cycling in Florence. And he was like, where are you going? So I explained, and he was like, that's mental. He was like, what are you doing? And then they bring out my pizza. They put the pizza down on the table, and then one person from this massive table goes, over here, like in English. And I was like, sorry? And he was like, yeah, over here. And I was like, okay. And he was like, you get up. And he basically just told people from his table to get up and move, and then brought all my stuff over, brought my pizza over, and just sat me down next to him. And basically this one guy could speak a little bit of English. And he was like, oh, he's just told us what you're doing. He was like, come sit with us and eat. And we were talking, and then they were just asking loads of questions about what I'm doing. And then the guy who owned the pizza shop was with this group. So that's what I didn't realize at the start. So basically, they had all been on holiday to Sardinia, and they'd all come back that day. They'd done like a 10-hour ferry home to Geneva and then driven back to Alessandria. And then because it had taken so long, he just said, right, all of us, because there must have been like 40 of them one way. He was like, right, everyone come to the pizza shop. We'll just sort you out tonight. No one has to worry about dinner. We'll just do it. It's like the easiest way. So that was their plan. So that's what they were doing. So they were all together. Everyone in this restaurant knew each other. And they were all asking questions. And this one guy who could speak a little bit of English would listen to them. They'd speak for 5 minutes, and then he'd go okay. And then try to relay it to me in English, and we'd have this really cool conversation. It's amazing. And then where are you staying? And I was like, well, I'll just go and find somewhere. And they were like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, I've got a tent in the back, and I'll just ride down the road until I find a really quiet spot, and then I'll pick up. And he was like, no, you stay here. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, the pizza shop. He was like, you stay here, you can sleep on the floor. And I was like, really? He was like, yeah. He was like, the bathroom you can wash. He was like, you can use it. He was like, we close at 11. He was like, as soon as we close, the shop is yours. And I was like, that's so kind. Like, you're amazing. Like, that is so kind. He was like, yeah. He was like, anything you want. Like, honestly, just the kindest people. And so then we just chat for ages. So then I got washed, got changed, and then we just sit there chatting. And then they're trying to get me to drink wine. And after like the fifth of like, come on, have some wine, I was like, okay, fine, I'll have some wine, because I don't drink. So that I've broken that now. So I was doing so well. I did from the 11th of February until the 21st of June, which is not bad. Like, I'm pretty good at not drinking, but yeah, I mean, when peer pressured by 40 Italians, it's quite hard. So yeah,
part of the experience.
Exactly. Yeah, that was kind of my thought of like, well, when else am I going to be drinking wine in Italy with 40 Italians? I was like,
I stopped drinking when I was 21.
Yeah.
I'm 28 now.
Yeah.
But the time that I have broken that is I went to Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how often am I coming to Oktoberfest?
Yeah, and it's kind of like you're drinking within the experience. You're not drinking to get drunk.
Yeah.
Like, the point wasn't the alcohol. The point was like we were in this situation and it was being offered, and it was like everyone was drinking. Yeah, it just kind of made sense, and I was just like, yeah, do you know what? It's going to be fine. However, I hate wine. I severely hate red wine. However, this red wine was great. So either I've matured, unlikely, or this was really good red wine. I
mean, you were in Italy.
I was in Italy, yeah. It was Sardinian wine. I have no idea how much it costs, but it's amazing. So anyway, yeah, we chat for like hours more, and it gets to about 5 to 11, and they're closing, and like everyone's going. And then he said, we've been invited to a party. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, that's cool. And he went, yeah, you're coming. Get in the car. Gerardo's driving. I was like, sorry, what? Okay. He's like, yeah, come on, let's go. So I just got in this car with them, and then we just drove for like 25 minutes to this other town. And at this point, I'm like, what's going on? Like, this is mental. So we drove to this other town, and then we get there, and we're in this tiny little village, like tiny, it's like really small, really like compact. There's all these amazing buildings. It's really late at night. It's probably like 20 past 11 at this point. So it's like properly dark now. And we like pull up, and we're out. There's like this church where we pull up, and it's just like you can see like the tower is like above you, just looking at it. It's so cool. And we just go down this tiny little alley. And as we go down this alley, it just opens up into this small like little courtyard with a tree. And they're all just, there's like another like 20 of them just sat all on these like little red chairs, just in a massive circle, just having a chat. And it turns out one of the other guys owns a bar there, and he's like, come in, he's like, whatever you want. So like I had a beer, and like we were all like getting a beer, and then we just went out and started chatting, and we just like talked for like another like hour and a half maybe, and then yeah, just like had a laugh. And then they drove me back to the pizza place, and then like unlocked the pizza place, like went in, set up the bed and stuff. And he's like in the morning you just push the door and then shut it behind you and it will lock. He's like, I've got the camera, I'll see you go. And he was like, and then they've got like the fridge full of drinks. He was like, anything you want is on me, like you can take anything you want. I felt awful. It was like in the morning, I remember in the morning I was like, I really didn't want to take anything because it was so generous, but I took one bottle of water because I was absolutely dying in the morning because it was still so hot. And I remember taking a bottle of water, and I remember they had like a little notepad. They had the pad for taking orders, and it was just sat on the counter, and I saw there was like a pen next to it on the counter, so I remember just writing Grazie Bob on it and just like leaving that. And then they're all like following me on Instagram. And actually, because they gave me the wine, I'm going to send them a bottle of Penderyn whiskey, because they gave me some of their wine, and I was like, what? Like, it'd be really cool if I could get the map printed of where I went with the whole route, get the picture of me and them printed, because I took a big like selfie with all them in the background, and then send them a bottle of Penderyn with it. I think that would just be really cool. So I'm going to send that to them hopefully pretty soon, because I've got the address of the pizzeria on my phone. But yeah, it's just amazing. And then I just slept on the floor, and then just went off in the morning. And yeah, just so nice, just so cool. Nice. I know, yeah, it was absolutely insane. Yeah.
What was like the hardest part of the whole thing? because like there's so much has happened, and I
yeah.
want to cover it all, and I know I'm going to get to cover it all because I'm editing the videos, but like we're not going to cover it all in this podcast for sure.
Well, we can. It'll be long.
We got to leave some stuff for them
Yeah, that's
to
true.
want to watch your YouTube videos.
So I think the one moment where I thought it was all up. So I don't really know what happened, but I suddenly started to get really bad asthma symptoms. So for context, I have very mild asthma. I don't take an inhaler. Like, I just don't. I just never use it. I've got one of the brown ones for the asthmatics that this gives context to. I have a brown one that I never take, and I also have a blue reliever, which I also never take because I just don't need to. Just never needed it. But something happened, and on day 8, when I woke up in a place called Langer. So it mainly happened. So when the storm happened, we're going back to the story of when I was in the storm and hid in the funeral home with the woman was called Benedict. So when I hid there, that kicked off my asthma. And I don't know if it was the storm that did it, because the air gets like thick, but yeah, that sort of kicked off my asthma. And I remember feeling a bit like, oh, I think I need to take my asthma pump. So I remember taking it that day, and then woke up the next day, kind of felt all right. And then I went to a place called Cézanne, and I rode 120 miles that day. It was a big day, pushed really hard, got there really late. And I remember when I got there being really out of breath. I remember I was trying to record bits to the camera and I just couldn't really speak. And I was just like, this is horrible. So I took the asthma pump again, and I was just like, what's going on? And then that night, the campsite was on a bit of a hill, and I messaged my mate, and I was like, mate, shall I sleep like legs up or legs down? I was like, I don't know. And he was like, I always do legs up, it's best for me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try legs up. So I did legs up, which I think was good for my legs, but I don't think it was good for my chest. And I woke up the next morning, and I remember waking up to an asthma attack and just being like, oh crap, like this is really bad, and just feeling really rough. And I was like, oh, this is just not good at all. And then I tried to cycle into town, which was a mile, and had a little bit of a hill. And when I say a little bit of a hill, like, it was nothing really. And I cycled a mile into town, and I just couldn't breathe. I could not breathe at all. I was absolutely dying. I was just heaving over the bike. And I remember getting to a bakery, stopping, getting like 2 croissants, and then riding a little bit further up the road and getting some water, and then just sitting on the steps, like outside this little church, and just being like, what the hell am I going to do? And I thought I had a chest infection. I messaged my friend Sarah, and she was like, I don't think you have a chest infection. She's like, I think something's wrong with your asthma. And I was like, yeah, but this is like, it just doesn't make any sense. I still don't know what it was. And even to the point where I ran last night and I had an asthma attack running last night. It still hasn't gone away. So I have no idea what it is, but that day it was really bad. It was absolutely horrific that morning. And I was genuinely thinking like, right, what is the plan to like get out of this? Like what do I do? Like, do I abandon the bike and pick it up at a later date, or like just what do I do? Do I hire a car? Do I try and get a train? Like, what are my options? And then I like sat down, took like probably like 20 shots of the asthma pump, like just like chain smoking my asthma pump, and started riding, and progressively through the day it got better. And I was like, okay, cool, it's kind of getting all right now. And then every day after that, it did slowly get better. I still managed 120 miles that day after all of that asthma attack in the morning. And I don't know what it is. I think I got COVID. Should we cut that out?
It's up to you.
No, just the sentence, just me saying the word COVID, because it just kills everything on it. I think I got a chest infection. Yeah, just bleep.
I'm gonna keep the whole thing in.
Keep the whole thing in, but just bleep those words so that it doesn't. Everyone knows what you mean. Yeah. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what happened. So Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I still get.
Gonna be the clickbaity title.
Yeah,
now.
I still get asthma attacks now. I'm still getting them, and I don't know why. It's really annoying. But that was the closest I thought to. I had like multiple thoughts of like, okay, do I just get back to the UK, and as soon as I'm in the UK, I just get someone to pick me up. But it just got better each day. It just got slightly better each day. So I was just like, well, I'll just crack on then. I'll just keep going. And then my first night in the UK, I slept in a bag. Yeah.
I just love how you come out with these things with like minimal context, and it's just like, what? And I've just learned to just be like, all right, Bob, whatever.
I couldn't be asked to set the 10. I arrived. I call it day 10.5. So on day 10, I rode from. So I rode from Cezanne to another place. What was that place called? I can't remember. That was really funny because I phoned up the guy. The guy from the campsite. I phoned up the guy from the campsite. So essentially, I was just turning up to campsites really late and just hoping I'd get lucky. But it was getting tighter and tighter. Like I'd had 4 people in a row be like, "You're really late getting here. What's going on?" And every time I'd been like, "Yeah, sorry, I had a puncture." It's not true. I was just like filming with the drone or something. It just like slowed me down massively. Or I'd just ridden like 120 miles and it'd taken all day. So I was like, okay, I should maybe like call ahead. So I called this guy, and I said to him, I was like, hi mate, I'm first of all I was like, what is it? Tu parles anglais? So do you speak English? And I was like, and he was like, yes. I was like, okay, that's brilliant because this conversation would have gone really horribly wrong if you didn't. And I said to him, I'm about 60 kilometres away. I'm hoping to get there to your campsite. Is there any chance I could pitch up tonight but late? And he said we're very busy and we close at 9. And I went, okay. And he went, yeah, so make sure you get here before 9, but if there's no spaces left then you can't stay. I was like, okay, I'll cycle quick then. That was it. That was the extent of the conversation. When I got there, he was lovely. It's just so funny. So yeah, like really like powered on to get to this place and got there. The benefit of that place is they had like a laundry place, so I could do the laundry, because that slowed me down a lot, like just finding places to do laundry and then having to stop for like an hour and a half just waiting for the laundry to happen. But yeah, so did that, and then on the next day I was like, right, I'm making Calais, like no matter what, I'm going from here to Calais and then I'm gonna get over. So I was like, could I make the 6 o'clock ferry? I was like, maybe. And then what I didn't realise at that time is you have to board an hour before it departs, so there was no way I was making it. And then after like 30 miles that day, I realised there was no way I was making it. I was just feeling like rubbish. So I was like, okay, cool, we're doing the 9 o'clock ferry, which I like barely made. And then so I got on the ferry, but then the ferry was delayed. So then the ferry didn't leave for a while. So then I'd done 105 miles to get there. But then I phoned ahead again to a campsite in the UK. And the first campsite I phoned, they just said no. They were just, I was like, look, I'm getting the ferry over from France. I'm on my bike. Is there any chance I could pitch up really late? And she was like, no. And I was like, okay. She was like, no. She was like, we'll lock the gates and we won't let you in. You'll disturb people. I was like, okay, fair enough. And then the other woman I phoned was absolutely lovely, just amazing. She was like, yeah, of course. She was like, of course. Anytime you get here, it's absolutely fine. Like, pitch up late, it'd be absolutely fine. We'll sort you out in the morning. And I was like, you're an absolute legend. I really wish I could remember the name of the place. That's really bugging me because she was so nice. But I'll message you afterwards what the name of the place is and put them all up in the video because I'd love to give everyone a shout out. Yeah. We'll do that. But yeah, so she was amazing, and they were the best showers I had. Their showers were amazing. I remember getting it. It was like 1 a.m. when I arrived, because basically, so sorry, I can't go right. So the ferry was delayed, so the ferry didn't get in until 10:30, and then letting me off the ferry, the guys on the ferry were like, "You're going off last," so I had to wait for all the cars, all the lorries, everything to go off. So that took like another 25 minutes, and then getting out of the ferry port. there was roadworks on the cycle path. Like, how is there roadworks? So I had to go all over the place, and I made absolute chaos, because then at one point this woman, I was just like riding through cars who were trying to board the ferry, just like literally just riding across them, and this woman was like screaming at me. She was like, "Where are you going?" And I was like, "I'm trying to get out. Like, please help me." So then she like helped me like get out. So then I got out, but I kind of had a plan for where I was going to go. But I booked this. I'd phoned this woman, booked this campsite, but it was 24 miles away from the ferry port. But bear in mind, the ferry's got in at 10:30. It's taken me 40 minutes to get out of the ferry port. So it's 11:10, so it's pitch black dark now. And I had kind of got a bit of a plan of like, right, I'm going to take some B roads. But I came off, and just trying to get out, I got so confused getting out of this ferry port, I basically just got straight onto the A20, which was fine through Dover, and then I followed it out of Dover, and immediately it just goes up this massively steep hill and just turns into a dual carriageway. And I was just like, I've got one tiny little light on my bike, the red light on the back of my bike wasn't working, and I've just got cars just doom, doom, doom. And I'm just like, and they probably can't even see me, and I was like, I'm gonna die again. So that was a nightmare. So then eventually, I stopped by the side of the road, like changed all my lights. I got my head torch out, changed my head torch to red, attached it, like rigged it to the back of the bike, so I had a red light flashing on the back of the bike. So that worked. Then had the torch in front of me. I'll send you a picture of what I could see. I've got a picture from my phone, literally just taking a picture of what I could see. It's nothing. It's just nothing. And then, so I rode through Folkestone and got lost in Folkestone. And then there was, like, I remember just thinking, like, this is such a great welcome home, because I got to Folkestone and it was Saturday night, and there was some kids in the park, and there was these, like, these guys, like, screaming at these women in the park. Like, not like abuse, like actually like guttural, just screaming at them. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And then like 20 seconds later, I saw a guy try to kick a moving bus. I was just like, oh God, I'm back in the UK, aren't I? So I got through all of that, rode to the campsite, and then finally got there, and it was like 1:30 in the morning, had this amazing shower, and I was just like, I'm not setting up the tent. So I had a survival bag in my kit, so I ripped open the survival bag, and I got in my sleeping bag, like stood up like a worm, like, and then got in the survival bag, and then just like jumped forward like 4 jumps onto the ground, and then just lied down and went to bed. And I've got a picture of it. I'll send you the picture as well.
Nice.
Yeah, it's great. I'll show you the picture. I just think it's funnier if I show you right now. Where's the survival bag picture? Yeah, there we go. That's what I slept in.
Show it to the camera.
Oh yeah.
That's what he was sleeping in.
I'll send you the picture so you can literally just edit it in. That's what I slept in. I'll send you another picture of me. I took a picture like just before I went to sleep of like, good night, and I just look like death. Like, it's so like, I remember my mum said to Martha, she was like, I don't mean to be mean, but you looked fucking awful in that picture. I was like, I know. It was amazing. That was that. What else happened? God, so much else happened.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And this is all in the period of what, 12 days?
12 days, yeah.
12 days.
12 days. So technically 11 and a half, because I didn't start cycling in Pisa until 2 o'clock. So
that is insane amount of things to happen in less than 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, it was nuts. There was another thunderstorm where I hid in a bus shelter. I'm trying to think, like, other stuff happened. There was a really
things did happen, guys, I swear.
I'm just thinking about the woman in Tadley. So I phoned my last campsite. I phoned ahead, and I said to the woman, I said, hi, I'm having loads. So basically, the bike was like dying at this point. So the teeth on my front.
I did actually see this bit as well. This was one of the other stories I did actually watch.
So the teeth on my front chain ring were just wearing really low. So the chain was sitting really high. But the roads in the the UK are terrible compared to Europe, like absolute dog shit. So essentially what happened is that I was riding, and then every time I'd hit a pothole the chain would jump off, but also my left cleat was getting jammed. I don't know if it was from the heat, because they're like this soft plastic, so I don't know if the heat was like melting them a little bit when I was out in like Italy, but essentially sometimes it would just get completely jammed, so even though I'd like slam my heel to try and get it out, it just wouldn't come out. So there was a couple of times where like the chain would come off, and then I would try to go, and I'd go like, oh crap, I need to like put it back on, so I'd slam my heel to try and get it, lose a load of speed, the cleat wouldn't come out, I'd lose all my speed, lose my momentum, go to pedal, but the chains come off, so then I'd just lock up all the mech and then just fall off. So I just fell off so many times when I got back to the UK, and I remember like I was getting really annoyed and really irritated, and I'd hardly slept at all. So like that was after the night of sleeping in the bag, and I got there at 2, and I think I woke up at 6 a.m. So I'd had like 4 hours sleep, and I remember this runner came past, and I really hope he somehow finds the video or sees the part or something, because it'd be really cool, because I had a really, really brief interaction with him, but he was very kind, because I picked up the bike and the camera fell off, and he picked up the camera off the floor and sort of like stopped his run and turned around and stopped his music, and he was just like, "Are you all right?" Like, and was just like really genuine about it. And like, you know that moment like where you know when you're like totally fine until someone asks you, and then suddenly you're like, oh shit, I'm gonna cry. Like, fortunately I held it together, but he was like, are you alright? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine, like thank you for asking, like thank you for stopping your run. And then he sort of like turned around and carried on, and I was just like, I am literally gonna cry. I was like, what is going on? So I remember just getting back on the bike immediately and just be like, right, and then I was in so much pain because something had stabbed my leg, and my leg was absolutely killing, and then I'm pretty sure I'd torn the quad at that point, so I've torn my VMO, so I'm pretty sure it was already torn at that point, because it was very painful that day, and it was very painful the day after as well. But yeah, the woman in Tadley, so I phoned her and I said that I'm on my bike, I'm riding home, but I'm having mechanical issues with the bike, so I'm going to be there really late. I always had an excuse of why I was going to be there really late, and all the excuses were bullshit. The only true excuse is that I was trying to ride really far and I'm really slow. That was the excuse. So she was like, that's a bit mental. And I was like, yeah. I was like, is it more mental if I told you I started in Italy? She was like, no, not really. And I was like, okay, fair enough. She was like, well, yeah, you're talking to someone who was stood here in July watching them load a blow-up Santa and Rudolph onto a low loader, and then suddenly someone who does porn walked past. And I was like, right, okay. I don't really know what to say to that, but that's what really funny. I don't really know. I can't remember what I did say. I think I was finding the conversation really funny at this point. I've got this filmed. I filmed this phone call. Yeah. So I and then I said to her, and then she goes, "Do you want a bath?" And I went, yeah, that would be great. And she's like, do you want a bed? And I was like, yeah, of course I do. She's like, oh yeah, we've got someone who's away. I'm like, okay, great. And I'm like, wait, isn't this a campsite? What's going on? And I was just like, you're like, this is so kind, you're so amazing, like, thank you so much. I was like, I'll try and be there as early as I can. She was like, yeah, no worries. And then like I set off, and then like 20 minutes later she texted me and she was like, oh, I'll make you some food as well. And I was like, you're so kind, thank you. And it was just madness. And like I turned up and it was like this amazing place. It was absolutely huge. I had these electric gates on the front. When I got there was like buzzers, and I had to like press to be like buzzed in. These gates open, there's this massive like 200-foot long drive, and I'm like riding down it, and then there's like peacocks and like chickens and dogs and all this stuff, and there's just madness. It was amazing.
I cannot wait for these videos.
I know.
I'm editing them, and I'm just like, oh, I can't wait for them to come out. I get to watch it all first.
I know. It's honestly, mate, it's mental. Just some of the stuff.
I'm so gutted that it wasn't coming out in real time to me, because like That would
Yeah.
have been amazing for me to just watch through. If I had this
Oh,
context before the podcast, I'm sure I'd have more questions.
Yeah, probably, yeah. Because there's things I'm forgetting. I'm sure there is. Yeah, there's gotta be. But no, it was just chaos.
What an experience! And how far was the cycle in total then? Like,
It was just under 1,300 miles.
Jesus.
So yeah, I think it was like 1,270 or something. So, like fairly far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
So I started off not doing that many miles. So I did the first day was like 75, but obviously that didn't start till 2 p.m. The second day was a lot better. I did about 114. Then I had about 3 or 4 days of doing about 80 miles.
Yeah.
And then the last 7 days, 6 out of 7 days, I did at least 120 miles. The only reason I didn't do it on the 7th day is because that was the day I had the puncture and had to hide from the thunderstorm. And that just wrecked me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just can't believe how much you went through in such a short period of time.
It's just the joy of travelling on your own. It's like just mad stuff happens. Like I just met really random people. I remember in the UK, like there was these 2 guys we were just like I was in a Shell garage, and I had to stop to do the bike. So I rigged up the bags with a load of bungee cords to like hold them tight. But basically, once I got to the UK, because the roads are so shit, like it just destroyed the bungee cords. So that I've got a picture of one of the bungee cords, which is absolutely destroyed. It lasted 10 days in Europe, and it didn't last 10 hours in the UK. Like it's mental. So I stopped to like change bungee cord and bin it, and then these 2 guys would just came over and had a chat, and they were like, "What are you doing? Where are you going?" Like, and all this stuff, and we were just having this great chat. I remember like talking. He was like, "I'm really into like funk music," and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." I was like, "Have you heard of Tower of Power?" And he was like, "No," and I was like, "Ah, brilliant." I was like, "You're gonna have the joy of listening to Tower of Power now." So I've sent him off to listen to Tower of Power. Probably will never speak to him again, but I've got the joy of knowing that he's gonna learn about them. It was just awesome. We were just having really random chats, and he brought up like Omar Hakim, who's like an absolutely insane drummer, and I was like, "Oh yeah, he recorded on this," and he was like, "Oh yeah," like we just had these awesome chats, and it was just so random, like someone that you'd never get to talk to, but because I'm on a bike with all this gear and just covered in grease, like I honestly, like my hands were just black because there was just so much grease from putting the chain back on repeatedly. It was all over my face because I'd obviously like got itchy, like rubbed my nose and stuff like that. So it was absolutely everywhere. So they like because of that. That's why they like chat. Like I remember being in the queue in a garage just outside of a place called Yate, which is I'd never heard of, but it's just the other side of the bridge. Never knew that. Yeah, I was there, and there was like 3 guys in the queue. And as I was like leaving, one of the guys was like, "Oh, how far are you cycling?" Because it's just like because you just do something a bit weird. People just kind of ask. It was cool. And I met another guy called John, and that was just like south of London. Like I just stopped to get a drink, and he was having food with his family, and he was just asking. And he had cycled through France. He'd cycled down to Bilbao, and gone all the way down the west of France. And he was talking about that and talking about how he'd had like problems with his chain and stuff. It was just really interesting. Like all these random people that you meet. Yeah.
It's mad how like it can be the smallest things that start off the conversation as well.
Yeah.
Like things that you just wouldn't think about, and I've started to get it more because I've been going out and supporting people's events. Like I went and supported Mike's 100 miler, and I went to the guys at Stantal. They were doing a walk from Cardiff Bay to Penavan Summit and back.
Yes.
So I went and I was like, I'll do 16 miles with you.
Nice. Yeah.
Just went and walked for hours with them, and I've started going out and doing these things, and now I've started talking to more people because I'm not one to talk to people when I'm out and about.
Yeah,
be honest.
Yeah. Like I'm usually really shy unless it's within the context of stupidity. If it's within the context dose of stupidity, then I'm like, yeah, it's great. I love it.
My dad's got a great way of describing me where he says I'm the most extroverted introvert he's ever met, because like I've got loads of stories like you where I remember once I was meant to be going to Germany on the Megabus with my friends. This is when Megabus was like super cheap. I got like this was the same time I got a bus to Barcelona and back.
Nice.
£1.60 return.
What?
Yeah. Insane.
That is mega.
It cost me more to get from where I lived to the coach station than it did to get to Barcelona and back.
That's insane.
It was 26 hours each way, so that was pretty rough.
Yeah,
But yeah, so I was meant to be getting a.
took me longer to get home.
It was. I was meant to be getting a Megabus to Germany. Like we'd planned, like we want to go Germany. It'll be wicked. We've never been Germany. And then I was like, I'll book the Megabus tickets tonight. And I like went on Megabus, and I was like, oh, Belgium's cheaper. Should we go Belgium? And they were like, no, I don't want to go Belgium. And I was like, I'm going to Belgium. I've booked my ticket for Belgium. Do you guys want to come? Because like the whole thing was spontaneous anyway. We just randomly picked Germany. They're like, no, we're going to go Germany. They didn't end up going Germany. I just ended up going Belgium on my own.
Amazing, yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. Not going to bother finding anywhere to stay. I'll just go to Belgium. I'll figure it out when I'm there. And then on the coach there, like I'm just sat there, headphones in and everything. And the guy, he wasn't even sat next to me. It was a few rows forwards. He just like was looking at me, and then I was just like, and he just came over. It was like, oh, you're all right, mate. I was like, yeah. And he just wanted a conversation.
Yeah.
I just looked like the friendliest person on the coach, so it was just like, oh, you're all right. I was like, yeah. It's like, oh, where are you going? I was like, I'm going to Belgium. Like, we're on a coach.
Yeah,
like,
we're on the same bus, the same way. So I think you know what I mean. But,
and he was just like, yeah, what are you doing there? And all of that. And I was just saying, like, oh, I'm just going for a holiday. I was like, oh, what do you doing there? He was like, oh, I live there. Like, it's one of the top hairdressers in the world, funnily enough. Really odd. He was like, I'm from Liverpool, but I moved to Belgium because that's where it is for hairdressing. And I was like,
is it?
Amazing. Yeah, apparently so.
I wonder if they can sort out my receding hairline.
So I was chatting with him, and he was like, yeah, so whereabouts in Belgium are you staying? Like, we're going Brussels, like, whereabouts are you staying? Obviously, I know it. I live there. I've lived there for like 10 years. And then I was like, I haven't figured that out yet. And he was like, what? I was like, yeah, I haven't figured that out. He was like, you can stay with me if you like. And I was like, what? He was like, yeah, come stay with me. Like, I'll take you to mine afterwards. And I was like, okay. Yeah. So took me to his, and he was like, I've got one key to this flat. I'm giving it to you. The only rule is you have to be like, you leave after I've gone to work, and you have to be back before I get in. But he did really long days anyway, so it was like out the door by like 8 a.m. and he wasn't back until like 7 p.m.
Oh, Sam.
And then I was just like,
all day to just go and explore.
Yeah. So then I'd just like go out, and I'd just make sure I was back before he got back. I ended up walking the whole distance of Brussels because I got a train to one side, because I like on the coach there I saw this cool looking church.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh, that looks cool. I want to go there. So I got the train there, and then I was like, I can't really afford the train back because I didn't take money on these holidays. So I was like, I've got to walk back now. So I just spent the whole day walking back. But then like every time I got back, it would be like, right, it would either be like, oh, I'm cooking for you. It would be like, oh, we're going out for food tonight. And it would be like, oh, we're going out, like, I want a drink, so, like, we're going to go out and have a drink. And he would pay for everything for me. And I was just like, what is going on?
That's mental.
And that was, like, a full, like, I think it was, like, 10 days.
Mad.
I was just living with this guy, and he was just paying for, like, everything for me. And I was just like, wow.
So what you're saying is you had a Belgian sugar daddy for 10 days?
Pretty much. And everyone took the piss out of me because they were like, oh, he just wanted a bit of you. Like, I bet he was queer. And the funniest thing was he was gay. But, like, nothing happened. They're like, I bet you soaked him off. I'm like, I definitely didn't. Like, I would remember that. They're like, are you sure he didn't drug you? I was like, no, 100%. They're like, he was going out getting you drunk, though.
He was,
I was like, boys, nothing happened. He was just genuinely nice.
That's so funny.
I mean, that is that, like, people are just genuinely nice. People are just helpful and things. It's like I had, like, multiple, like, situations where I'd like fallen off the bike, especially when I got back to the UK, and cars would just stop and just be like checking if I'm all right and things like that. And people are just nice.
Yeah.
Like you're like, okay, yeah, you're gonna come across a couple of arseholes, but like I didn't come across one the entire time. Like everyone was nice. Like absolutely everyone, and just so generous, and yeah, so you just get that. But like I love that. Like, and it's like you saying, like booking random things and just going to Belgium. Like that is where this whole thing started. Like I just booked a random holiday to Poland that never happened, and because of that, this has all happened. So yeah, I just need to book something else now.
Well, we've already said guests, the listeners are gonna do a poll for you. So
Yeah, that would be good.
We'll see
and
what
then
you
we'll
get.
figure out a date, and then we'll just do it.
that'd be wicked.
Yeah.
What's coming up on the cards for you? I know you've got things coming up.
So the main thing now is Iron Man. So that's the main thing, and that is what I'm really focusing on. Find out what's happening with the leg. So I've had physio on it, and thinks torn VMO. I technically haven't had it like scanned or anything, so it's not like 100%. But that is he was like, yeah, I'm like 99% sure, and if I had to put money on it, I would put money on it. So that was hurting while I was in Scotland. So for reference for Scotland, so I came back. So the reason I had to get back so quick is because on the 2nd of July I had to go to Scotland, because I had to be there on the 3rd, ready to film and run the West Highland Way. I was ready to film, I was not ready to run. I got 12 miles in and I was like, I can't walk. So we had to kind of find like an alternative to me running, which was me doing it from the car and doing a bit of running. So I only ran about 10 miles each day, which was better than running 25 miles each day. So yeah, but that's quite painful. So figure that out, make sure that's right, train hard, and try and smash an Ironman in under 10 hours. That is the plan. Then, as soon as Ironman is done, do something stupid immediately, as quickly as I can. I think a really good one is so one that I want to do with, so obviously I play in a band, there's 3 other band members. I haven't actually talked to them about this yet, but a really good idea I have, which I think they could do, is one of them picks where I go, one of them buys me a second-hand bike, and the other one packs all the gear I take, except camera gear. I get to choose all the camera gear because I want control over that so I can film it. But as far as cycling kit, clothes, camping gear, whatever, all of that stuff, all of the gear I take, even to the point of like backup inner tubes, like to the point like so if they don't pack me a multi-tool for the bike, I'm screwed. So basically that would be the plan. But I think to spice it up even more, instead of saying like, oh Dan, you pick where I'm going, and Josh, you pick the bike, and Laura, you pack all the stuff, I think we put location, bike and gear in a hat, and they have to pick it out to see which one they get. So it's just like there's no way I could possibly figure out where I'm going, what bike I'm riding, or what gear I'm taking. I don't even know who's booked it. and just see what happens.
You have some wild ideas. I'm throwing it out there. I think everyone's figured it out by now, but
I just think it's like I live for experience. Like that's what I care about. Like I care about people, the people I love and I know and who are around me, who I talk to all the time and spend all my time with. I care so deeply about them and want to spend as much time with them as possible and make amazing memories. And then I also hugely care about experiencing as much as possible, whether that is the highest of highs or the lowest of lows or the most terrifying situation or the most incredible situation, which is weird because I said terrifying situation, but I actually I hate things like horror movies. I'm not a massive film person anyway, but yeah, like the fear of being like, oh, I might die because I might fall off a mountain, or I might drown or be struck by lightning, I just think is amazing, because I just think what an experience. And just like going over the Alps, I haven't even spoke about going over the Alps, like that was incredible. Like just having to go up the Alps. So touching on that. So when I got to a place called Susa, I don't know whether it's pronounced Suze or Susa, but essentially it was like the last town in Italy. And at that point I was like, I'd been in the thunderstorm, and my thought was, the one bit of tech I'm going to allow myself, like properly. I said about how I was going to explain how I navigated cities. I think that's probably important. But I was like, I'm going to allow myself to check a mountain weather report, because I'm about to climb the largest mountain I've ever climbed on a bike in a country where I don't speak the language. I do not want to go up there if there's some sort of threat to life, like weather warning. I was like, it would just be stupid. Like, let's actually be a little bit smart about this, because I also hate the idea of having to like call mountain rescue. And I think I hate the idea even more of having to call French mountain rescue, because that I just don't want to do it. So I checked the weather, and there was 7 severe threat to life weather warnings for the town I was in. Not the mountain, the town I was in. And it was 1 p.m. and they were coming in at 6 p.m. And I was like, I've got 5 hours to get out of this town, and the only way to get out of this town is to climb a 2,000 metre mountain. I was like, okay, right. So I just went for it. I was just like, that's it. I'm just gunning it. I just filled up my water, filled up my food, and I just went for it. And I climbed for about 6 hours to get over the Alps, which was just chaos. But then getting over the Alps was absolutely amazing. I just climbed and climbed and climbed, and I just wound up the side of this mountain, just slowly, just trudging my way up the side of this mountain, just back and forth. But every time you turned, it just opened up into something more amazing. Every single time, it was like looking back over, and you could see the town, and there was like the town that I started in, where all the weather warnings were, which is this Susan. It kind of went up, and there was a massive mountain in front of you. And I kind of went up to the right of that, and there was another mountain on my right, and a bit of a valley which went up between them. And as I wound up and got over into this valley, it opened up into there was a tiny little village like nestled in this valley, which was amazing. And then I snaked up to the left, up above it, and then at one point I must have been like 1,000 meters above this like small little village, and it was just like a sheer drop all the way down to it. And you could just like, on the left there was just like another sheer cliff that was just so high, and then to the right was just this massive drop, and you're still just like winding up, and then you finally like get over onto the top of it, and there was this huge lake at the top of it, and I just rode around this lake, and it was absolutely incredible. And then descending the other side, it was like 40 minutes of going downhill, and it was some of the best descending I've ever done in my life, just winding down all these switchbacks, just going so fast. It was absolutely freezing. I had a coat on, ski gloves, like waterproof trousers. It was just awesome, just absolutely awesome. Yeah, it was the best thing ever.
It's just like I've said about 50 times now, just the amount you've been through in 12 days is just, yeah, it blows my mind, and I'm so jealous. I want to do everything that you've just done.
Go, give me your passport.
Oh, you're gonna get me in trouble, Bob. You're gonna get me in some right trouble.
I'll make it easy. I'll send you to Vietnam.
I'm actually looking at my passport on the side over there, and I'm like,
see it a second ago, and I was like, let's do it. Yeah. So so obviously I had no maps, so that was one of the things. So I had a compass and I had the massive map, but that I ran into an issue, which basically meant that it kind of became a little bit unachievable, because because my map was so large and there was no detail. I basically just couldn't figure out like how like getting through cities was impossible, like literally impossible. So essentially how I navved was I opened up Apple Maps on my phone, but I was not allowed to put in any destination at all. The only thing I was allowed to do was scroll around, and I could look at place names and a rough overlay of like the city map, and that's how I was doing it. And then eventually I got to the point where I was just writing a list of place names in my notes and then just following signs. So for example, we can look at one. So I still got a note in here from a day in the UK. So like my first day in the UK, I've got Biddenden, Sissinghurst, Goudhurst, I don't know how to say that, Tunbridge Wells, Tunbridge, Chiddingston Causeway, Four Elms, South Oxted, Godstone, Red Hill, Dorking, turn left for Albury, Chilworth, Shulworth, Peasmarsh, turn right to Compton, under A3 to Puttenham. Like that is literally how I nabbed the entire thing.
That's insane.
Yeah, that and a little compass. The compass was amazing. Like, and the best thing about the compass is I didn't even, for some reason, my brain didn't think to bring that until like the last moment. So I was like, I've got a map, it's fine. It's not fine unless you have a compass, is it? And I was like, yeah, it'd be fine. I got a map. And then like the day before when I was packing, I was like, oh, my compass is there. I'll put that in. Like just like so like nonchalant. Like, oh yeah, I'll put the compass in. Like I won't need that. And then when I got there, I remember setting up the bike, finally getting ready. I was like, right, I need to head north. And I was like, right, which way's north? And I was like, oh, I should probably get that compass out. Yeah. I was like, what? What an idiot. Like, how did I, like, but fortunately I put the compass in, because if I didn't put the compass in, it would not
still
go
be
well.
in Italy.
I'd still be in Italy, yeah. I mean, I probably would have had to download a compass app on the phone, which would have been annoying, but yeah. And then I thought my compass was broken, because, and it wasn't, and the woman was right. However, it really confused me because my map was at such a large scale. At this point, I wasn't using the Apple map, and I got out of Pisa, which was really quick. It was so quick getting out. Pisa is tiny, so it took me less than 2 miles to get out of Pisa. So then I stopped at this fuel station, and I said to the woman, I was like, I know the first place I need to aim for is like roughly Turin. So I said to this woman, is it that way to Turin? And I knew I was heading north. I was certain I was heading north because I'd been looking at the compass the entire time I was on this road, and it was heading north. And I was heading to this place called Lucca and then going to head across to Turin. And she was like, no, it's the other way. And I was like, what? She was like, yeah, no, Turin's that way. And I was like, no, that doesn't make any sense. But it did, because basically Turin was north, and the road I was heading to went to Lucca and eventually went north to Turin. But Turin was northwest, and basically because Pisa's on the coast, there was a coastal road. So what she was saying is, because she was saying it was that way, she was basically saying, no, all you have to do is go back to the coast road and follow that one north. So it was basically on two parallel roads going north, but one went northwest to Turin and one just went north. And I was on the one that just went north. But I was so confused, to the point where I remember Googling, I was like, does the red pin on a compass mean north? And I was like, I'm 100% sure it does, but I'm going to Google it to check. And I Googled it and it did, and I was like, yeah, I'm sure it does. I'm like, I'm so confused. I was just so utterly confused. But then, yeah, eventually I made it, yeah. And then
that's day one.
Yeah, that's day one, yeah. And I remember talking to this woman in this place called Lucca, and I knew I was in Lucca, and I was trying to say to her, how far is Turin? And I was trying to say it, but I obviously wasn't saying it right. And she was like, no, this is not Turin, this is Lucca. I was like, yeah, I know that, but how far is Turin? And I just couldn't get it across. And she obviously, she thought I was in Turin, and she was massively panicking, because she was like, no, you're like 400 kilometres from where you think you are. And I just couldn't get across. But I did buy a pistachio croissant from her, which was probably the best thing I've eaten in my life. So, yeah.
Right, I'm so excited for these videos.
I can't wait to see them too.
and I'm urging everyone listening to go and watch the series because it sounds like it's going to be incredible. I haven't even started watching them. All I've done is heard this, and I'm sold. Like, I can see why people were telling you that it's like they were gripped to their Instagrams.
Oh yeah. I can believe so many people said to me, they were like, "Oh, I had to watch your stories like every day and see what you're up to."
Yeah. It's quite an adventure, and yeah, the videos are just going to give so much more context.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be amazing.
It's going to be things I forgot. I can't wait to see them.
So that'll be incredible. So if people want to go watch those videos, where are you going to be releasing them?
They're all going to be released on my YouTube channel, which is Bob Thomas. That's it. You just have to search. It's actually easy to find me if you search Bob Thomas Ultra. If you search that, there's a picture of me sat in 2 camping chairs, and that's me. And you can see all of my stupid videos on there.
Amazing. Now, the last question I ask every guest on the podcast, which you don't know about because I didn't do this last time you was on the podcast, is if you can set a challenge for the listeners for the week, what would you set? Really on the spot here.
Right. Try to do something that's out of your control. Yeah.
Flip your car. It's out of your control.
Oh yeah. Swap your feet over while you're driving and see what happens. No, don't do that. I think last time I was on here, I recommended people try to run until they die. No, I just recommended that. Yeah, try to do something that's out of your control. So, like, get someone to book something for you, or just like say to a friend, like, let's do something on the weekend, and then just try and make it so that you just something that you would just never normally do, just something completely random. I think, yeah, because you just end up in a situation that you just would never have been in, and it just opens up so many more possibilities, and you just kind of have to end up thinking on your feet, and you just end up experiencing something. So if you never ever go hiking. If you've never ever gone in the sea, go in the sea. Like, just anything like that. Just if you can think of something that's just really random. And then a better way to do it would be like, put a load of things into a random generator and just say to a friend, right, we're going to go do something on Saturday morning, but we're going to randomly generate what we're going to do. Let's do it. And just go and just see what happens. Like, because you can do a mini adventure like I did. You can just do it in the UK. You could pick 10 places, put it in a random generator, and then just go like, which one are we going to? Bam, there you go. We're going to the Lake District. Let's go. Go to the Lake District. It's lovely. It's great. Yeah.
Amazing. So if you got a day off this week, random generator, place names, 10 places UK, and just get somewhere.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be place names. It can just be things, just different things to do. Surfing, paddleboarding, like hiking, like just something that you've never done, just like something you've always wanted to do. Because you never know what's going to happen, but you're going to have an experience no matter what.
Amazing. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast today.
No worries.
It's been another epic, what's that?
How long were we?
2 hours? We're 2 hours in. So...
Am I 1 and 2 for length?
No, this is going to be like 3rd or 4th place for length, this podcast. I'm sure it could have gone on for a lot longer.
Definitely could have.
But no, absolutely amazing. You're definitely the guest that spent the most time in this studio, because we've been trying to sort some things out with the podcast.
Yep.
I've been watching the auto edit constantly.
Yeah, I have noticed.
Oh my god, it is awful.
Is it?
So scrap that. I'm going to tweak it, see if I can come up with something. Probably not going to happen.
We'll figure it out.
I'll just have to keep Sam on the books.
Poor Sam.
Amazing. Well, thanks again for coming on.
No worries.
For your help with the podcast and everything. Hopefully all the little improvements are going to start taking place over time.
Working on it, isn't it?
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
No worries.